Ask him again.
JJ, it's been a while, man. How's your blood sugar? I've
Thanks,
actually been
though.
wearing
I'm good.
Huh?
I'm good, thanks though.
I've been wearing one of these continuous glucose monitors, just trying to learn about some different things. And I've been thinking about you a lot because there's no doubt like your blood glucose was like 150 milligrams per deciliter, like while we were at William and Mary, like the whole time. And it's amazing.
Towards the end, I was sneaking in a lot of
Oh,
salads.
anything consistently over 120 and you got problems.
Well, also be a high achiever.
Yeah, there you go. You never ran out of energy, that's for sure. Although you fell asleep like in weird places.
He's talking about apnea. Anyway, today we are joined by most productive man in the world. The man that makes me ashamed at how unproductive I am, what a terrible human I am. Dr. Erik Korem, PhD. And you're also the CEO of AIM7 now. But we'll get to that. Tell the boys and girls about your professional background.
Yeah, thanks, Kier. Thanks for having me on. I spent about 16 years in collegiate and professional sports started as a strength coach. And then over a decade ago, I was the first sports scientist in the US. I was very fortunate to bring athlete tracking technology to the US when I was at Florida State. And we were able to use the data and turn it into insight so that we could actually like reduce injuries and improve performance. And that's a key differential there. Is like a lot of people track things and measure things, but they actually don't turn it into actionable information. And we were able to actually, in one season, using the information and getting everybody to work together, we were able to reduce our injury rate by 88%. And we basically had a really talented team with excellent coaches and got out of their way. And they went on to win a championship. And then literally the NFL flew in when that season was over with. They sent in, I think it was like 8 guys. And they're like, what are you doing here? And I explained to them the benefits of using the tech. Huh?
This is the entire league as opposed to certain teams?
Yeah, it was like the front league's office.
Okay.
And so they sent people from the front office because Coach Fisher, I have to give him a lot of credit. First of all, he was the one that said yes. And then he actually had the gusto or he put it into play, you know? Yeah. And it's interesting to me now, like you look at a lot of coaches that are still risk adverse to modern thoughts. Like this guy over a decade ago took a flyer on this when he had just kind of, reached kind of the pinnacle of the sport. And so, yeah, they're like, what are you doing here with this, GPS stuff? I literally hired a former NASA propulsion engineer because it was all just raw telemetry data. It wasn't like in the open field format now. It was just like a CSV file.
Yeah.
And so they were interested in fan experience. And I was trying to explain to them like, hey, if you keep these players healthy, that, it's a fantasy football league. Like nobody wants to watch the game unless their favorite player is playing. So if you can keep these guys healthy, have longer careers, you're going to get more fan engagement. But anyways, they ended up adopting, tracking technology, and it just blew up everywhere. If I was smart, I would have gotten equity in one of these companies because they were like, Catapult was having me set up everybody, the Giants, the Bucks, I mean, you name it. But went on to be a high performer.
Investor? Huh? Isn't Mike Tyson an investor in Catapult?
Yeah, I think he's a significant investor.
TK was telling me, Hannibal Buress, the comedian?
Yes.
He's also an early investor in Catapult.
No way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's smart. I mean, it's really smart. People look at NFTs and all this kind of stuff, and like people that saw the revolution, like you have a dashboard on your car, but we're not measuring what's happening on the field. So if people that can kind of see around corners were smart enough to invest. So I went off to University of Kentucky to be the high performance director for Mark Stoops. And then I was a director of sports science at the Houston Texans, and then landed a I was fired from the Texans. I think there's two certainties in sport. You either have been fired or you're on your way to being fired. So for anybody out there that hasn't been fired yet, you will, unless you're just a unicorn. And if you recently have been fired, there's no shame in that. As a matter of fact, you should tell everybody.
Oh, yeah, TK got fired last week. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Well,
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Well, congratulations. Welcome to the club.
I spoke to Alejo on the phone. I'm officially a strength coach now. I've been fired.
Yeah, it's true. And it's painful, though. There's no doubt about it. Like, it's a painful thing. And there's some good stuff that can come out of that. So, yeah, I ended up at William & Mary as the director of high performance, and I had the opportunity to hire you and to get to work with you and JJ and some other just amazing folks.
So is it correct? Mark Stoops got there. He was was it the OC or the DC at Florida State?
He was a defensive coordinator at Florida State, yeah.
And then he got the job at Kentucky and took you with him. That's when I first became aware of you. Was it that you had all of those ideas in your head at Florida State, and then you got that fresh start at Kentucky, and you basically just went to town on it? You had free reign from him.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be, Coach Stoops allowed me to be part of his hiring process, kind of the strategizing. And he was like, Eric, if you come work for me, what would you want to do? And I know he admired my organizational skills. And I said, I would want to be a high performance director. He's like, what is that? So I wrote it all out. And he said, let's do it. So, and then he gave me a really healthy pay raise. And when I, obviously that's, got to go tell Coach Fisher. And he's like, the SEC wins again, he couldn't match it. And so, and it was the right move at the right time for my family and all sorts of other things. But yeah, I actually got to go give it a shot. Not many people get to do that.
Hindsight 2020, would you don't know in advance, like, oh, I'm going to be fired from the NFL, but seeing the evolution, because obviously you have it's a good and an annoying habit of when you come into a team, you make all these changes, you go to the next job, and then the trajectory as the team continues on, like the national championship at Florida State. As you said, I think it was the first 10-win season at Kentucky. Do you wonder, like, what if you'd have stayed at Kentucky? Are you okay with it?
Oh, I'm completely fine with it. I got a chance to go to the National Football League. My former general manager actually is invested in my company, Aim 7. I met some amazing folks. We've actually moved back to Houston because of the community of the people here. And, when you decide to do something really, really hard, you want to be surrounded by people that you care about and love. And no, I wouldn't change a thing. I learned a ton.
Yeah. So, I know the details. You can be as candid as you want, but like you clearly very, very, very dedicated to high performance sport. So I've no doubt there will be people in the industry that raise an eyebrow when you say, all right, I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm going to go produce an app. Let's talk through that process. Talk through, let's say, the year before.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to, when I was at William & Mary, a buddy of mine called me up, and this guy is like, he looks like G.I. Joe. He's a Marine, Cobra pilot, but he went to Harvard, got his master's education, went to Stanford and got an MBA. Like, he's just kind of like one of these anomalies. And he calls me up and he's like, he's been a long time friend. He's like, Eric, you need to do this thing called the Presidential Leadership Scholars. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, first of all, I have no time for anything else because I'm started this job and I'm defending my dissertation. And he's like, no, you need to do this. So I checked it out. And what it was is the presidential centers of George W. Bush, George H. Bush, the Clinton Foundation, and the LBJ Foundation. So 2 Democratic, 2 Republican presidential organizations select 60 scholars a year. And the idea is that you develop a network and you get trained so that you can go out and really impact the world for good. And for some reason, I was selected. I was the dumb coach. And it was like people that are like in politics, you know, CEOs of major corporations, NGOs, all this stuff. And you literally got trained for 6 months by the former presidents of the United States and their administrations on things like scaling an idea, negotiations, strategic relationship building. And we flew all over the United States. So I spent a week in DC. They literally shut down the National Archives, had dinner next to the Declaration of Independence. You know, then they fly you to this presidential center and you're going to meet this president. And it changed my life. And so a situation like that has, like, your eyes get open as to actually what could you do? Mm-hmm. And I started thinking, like, how could I have a much broader impact? And to be quite frank, I was just tired of my career being dictated by somebody that may or may not be competent to do their job. And there's a lot of really good coaches out there, and there's some that aren't. Just like there's a lot of good high performance directors or doctors, and some people that just aren't good. So I made a friend with this a friend. His name is Mark Hadar. He's the CEO of Bentley, which is a connected car company, and it's a massive multinational organization. I didn't quite understand at the time, like, what this guy had done and built, but I just heard he was a really smart entrepreneur. So I threw this idea at him. He's like, Erik, this is
asylum seeker, right?
Yeah. So the guy is really originally from Lebanon. He's actually on my podcast. It's an amazing story. And long story short, when during the war, I think it was 2006, he got out of Lebanon, got smuggled through Syria to the United States. He gotten accepted to Detroit Mercer, comes to America. He has $200 on a card, finds his way there. His cousin or somebody was there, lived in an attic, no joke, worked at a mobile gas station and wrote contracts for
Middle Eastern Fernando.
Dude.
I was thinking, like, yeah, I could, like, relate to that.
No, the guy's amazing.
$200 is a lot of money.
His family, like, literally, his neighborhood's getting bombed. His dad's like, here's our entire life savings, is $2,000 on this card. And comes to the U.S. The way he gets his school paid for is he wrote this contract, helped write this contract for the DOD. They pay for his graduate school. He makes it through in 2 years, starts a company with $50 in his pocket called Dialexa. It blows up. Then he starts Venly. He's done very well for himself. And he's one of the most generous, kind human beings. So I'm talking to Mark. I'm like, hey, I got this idea of how can I scale this high performance concept to anybody in the world? And he's like, technology. You don't want to be limited by client hours or yourself or a group of people. So I started doing some research, and I'm like, I wonder if in the consumer market, they had the same problem that we had a decade ago at Florida State. Because here's the embarrassing thing. First time I got a GPS report from practice, I go into Coach Fisher's office, I put it in front of him. I'm like, here you go, coach. And he's like, this is a big rookie mistake. I had nobody else to teach me. And he's like, so was practice hard? And I said, I think so. And he just, like, ripped me. And I'm sitting in my office and I'm like, okay, I'm also his director of football operations. So I'm his DFO, which is basically, I'm basically general manager of the organization and doing sports science. I'm like, where did I go wrong? And I realized that I just given an executive a bunch of data he had no idea how to use. And that's when I realized that data without insight is useless. So I'm like, okay, I wonder if the consumer market has the same problem. This is 2 years ago. So I started doing some research, and I find that the number one complaint by wearable tech users is their data is useless. Okay. It's why Fitbit lost $6 billion in their valuation. Because that's a lot of money. And they recently got acquired by Google, but I listened to their CEO recently, this is like 6 months ago, talk about how they weren't listening to their customers. They were giving them descriptive data, but they weren't telling them how to use it.
Yeah.
And so without actionable information, these devices literally end up in your sock drawer. So I called a friend of mine up. I was like, hey, let's see if we can. First of all, I asked people, what do they want? So I sent out all these surveys, like, what do you want from your wearable tech? Because that's a really important thing. Like, what's the problem you want to solve? People said they want more energy. Like, okay, that makes sense. Everybody's drinking coffee, 5-hour energy. So we ran a pilot to see if we can link Apple Watch data and another little data set to health outcomes. And we could, not only could we predict energy, we could predict energy and mood states multiple days in advance. So Mark looked at this and he's like, here's $100,000, go build this company. I had no idea what I was doing, like zero idea. So I started AIM-7, and, you know, our value proposition is AIM-7 sets busy people free by building lifelong healthy habits. And we can talk about how we do that, but we take wearable technology data, like from the Apple Watch, and mHealth apps like MyFitnessPal or Headspace or Calm. We don't create any of that stuff. And then we turn that data into customized solutions for sleep, energy, stress, and weight loss. And yeah, that's what we're about to bring to the market. And to my knowledge, nobody's shot this gap yet.
If I had to do an app for stress relieving, it would just be one line of code that flashes up, get rid of your child.
Oh, I'm sure somebody thought that your mom probably thought the same thing about you.
Oh, okay.
I was a high energy child.
No, man, being a parent's hard. No question. And that's our target demographic, actually. Mid-career professionals and what we call household CEOs that are time poor, that care about their health and well-being, that want simple solutions. And I think anybody that's listening to this, if you're a coach, whether you're in business or in sports, know your audience. I spent a lot of money. I hired a research firm out of New York to survey Apple Watch wearers, to find out who these people were, what they liked, what they didn't like, what their favorite kind of exercise. I mean, I have just tons of data on these people, because you got to like really understand. Like, if you don't understand the team you're serving or the coach you're serving, you're going to fail. In business, if you don't understand your target demographic, you will ultimately fail. And it may change. You may find that this is what we thought it was, and it really narrows down to like this real small niche. So
where are you at now?
Yeah, so we're weeks away from launching our beta product. So what a beta is, it's like the earliest form, and we're going to do what's called private beta. So you will not be able to access this on the iTunes or the App Store. So if you go to our website, aim7.com, AIM7.com, and actually, I think Kier is going to send out something to this group.
Yeah.
When there's a little form you fill out, we're going to send you an email back. And if you say that you heard this through Kier One and Flat or SCN, we're going to bump you right up to the top of the list. But we're only going to let the first 1,000 people in for free.
Cool.
Okay.
Is that how they did it with like Clubhouse?
Yeah.
Clubhouse was like, they started with venture capitalists.
Yeah.
And they had this fear of missing out. The reason you do this with a product like this is because in beta, number one, we're going to give people a much higher level of service. They're going to get Zoom coaching meetings. So here's what the product looks like. There's two big parts of this. Number one, and everybody will appreciate this, everybody needs a coach, right? If you want to get better at something, you have to expand what's called your zone of proximal development, which is there's only so much that we can do without the guidance of an expert. So I literally went out, I got the head of sports psychology for the US Olympic Committee. Like we got some studs on our advisory board. And the first thing we do is we teach you a behavior design model. And you could use this with your athletes, but it's how to quickly wire in a new habit. Because a lot of these programs, a lot of these apps fail because it's just a one-time thing and there's nothing put in place to help you cement this habit like really fast. So we use modern neuroscience research to do this, along with what we call values-based decision-making. So we teach you that week one. And then we start very small. So let's say you want to sleep better. We teach you, if I just say, hey, you need to sleep 7 to 9 hours a night, like, gee whiz, like, thanks a lot, right? we create the biological conditions that allow you to sleep better. So we give you like these very simple habits that you can execute because we're serving people that don't have a lot of time. And then we slowly increase the volume of those over time. And then we give you very specific targets. And then we have these really cool nudges in the way that we do it. So we start with education. Something else that we put in there that's really unique is we developed an exercise recommendation engine. It's like a fluid periodization model that uses your biofeedback. And we don't tell you which exercises to do. You know, if you love Peloton or you're a strength coach and you're an Olympic weightlifter or whatever, we don't want to tell people the exercise program. That would shut you off from millions and millions of people. But we provide the guidelines, duration, intensity, heart rate zones, all that kind of stuff. And so we ran what's called a minimal viable product. I recommend every coach read the Lean Startup Methodology and 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. But whenever you have an idea, like let's say you have a new program idea, what do? You test it on yourself, right? And maybe a few other people to see how it works. In business, you do what's called an MVP. It's a minimal viable product. So we did that in January and February to like, does this thing work? And we were able to help people that were like stroke victims sleep through the night within weeks. We helped a guy lose 35 pounds in 16 weeks. We helped people reduce their stress. A lady that was in human trafficking, like all sorts of amazing stories. And you're like, okay, this is working. Then you use those requirements to go build your app. And so it's a terrible idea to just go, oh, I'm going to go build this thing. I'm going to go make this product and then go make it and then go throw it out in the world and then find out that everybody hates it. And so
network. So for 2 years, Strength Coach Network, the website was literally a sales page that I paid $30 for the template on WordPress. And it was probably 6 figures a year before I actually built the website.
That's so smart here. And I've learned the
laziness, Eric, but yeah.
Well, you know me, I'm a perfectionist.
And really?
Really? Like when you see the video content in this thing, my brother who makes movies, he's making a movie about Milli Vanilli right now. And he saw the video content. He's like, doggone, Eric, this is like really good. But I wanted people like, if I'm going to give somebody something, I want it to be like the best it can possibly be. But you can't make that jump until you know that they at least like this little thing. So, you know, if feel free to share this with your relatives and you could tell them SCN, you know, just put that in there. It's going to be free for the first 1,000 folks. But yeah, we're really excited to go out and serve just a different group of people. Same idea though. You know, we're helping people perform at their best at home and their personal lives and their relationships. It's just a different playing field.
Any, you know, what are your aspirations for the future? If you know, gave you a magic wand and said, oh, in 10 years, you're going to get exactly what you want from this venture, what is it going to look like?
That is a great question. One of the things that you should always ask yourself is what happens if this works? In any scenario. You know, we have basically become the ways of health, well-being, and healthcare. Yeah. And so we're going to start connecting in things like, you know, Apple Health allows you to connect with your medical data. And because we are doing one thing that nobody else will do, we actually give you a recommendation. And these recommendations are going to scale over time because here's something that we use. It's called decision intelligence. It's the merger of machine learning and human expertise to make better decisions that lead to better outcomes. So you could be how do you duplicate Bill Belichick's brain? Well, if you want to duplicate that,
New York Giants.
No comment.
I'm sorry.
That's actually a friend of mine. You know that.
I do know that. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So you have to, machine learning is really good, but you have to have somebody train the model. And so decision intelligence is a new science, and Dr. Lorian Pratt, who co-invented it, is actually building our models. And to her knowledge, nobody's ever done this in health and wellness. And so we can deliver these at scale. So it's not like Kier, you can only write so many great programs, but how do you do this for 10 million people?
Yeah.
So my goal is like we start with this, we serve B2C, business to consumer, and we can create recommendation engines for very diverse cohorts. Then we start bringing in medical data, and we can really start helping point people to like some of the biggest problems and helping solve the biggest problems like diabetes, type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease. And then you could have a B2B, business to business vertical where you're like, now your algorithms power other people's business like solutions, right? So maybe it's for corporate healthcare.
The reason I ask is, I remember reading, maybe I saw a video recently where they basically said that in the next 10 years, the biggest healthcare company on earth is going to be Amazon. And then they're starting to incorporate Amazon Pharmacy because it's really a data company, but you have all of their, for example, purchasing history, their behaviors, and all the other Amazon technologies, which is the data going in, and you can start to make predictions about outcomes and stuff like that. And then what you're doing is like closing the loop of like, well, how do you modify those subsequent behaviors?
So Kier, you nailed it. Because we actually make a recommendation, we actually understand outcome, and then our recommendations get better. So the only way to solve this problem is to create a massive data set of tens of thousands of people across hundreds to thousands of recommendations across hundreds of thousands of variables. That's what we're doing, but we're starting with the things that we know work. It's kind of like if you want to get somebody stronger, what do? Well, it depends on how old or whatever. If they're a teenager, like progressive overload. Like we know that if you're 16 and we just slowly increase, like you're going to get stronger. Yeah. There are certain things that we know from sleep and energy and stress that we can turn over these big biological rocks, right? And that people are going to they're going to get big return on investment of time. But then we start making these custom recommendations with exercise and then saying, hey, now you need to put a nap here. You need to do this. And then it just gets bigger. Now you start bringing in medical stuff and you go, oh, you have a nutrient deficiency. Boom, 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 boom. Now but nobody wants to make a recommendation. Like I wear an Aura ring. Eventually we're going to bring Aura in here. Great product, but they don't like give you a custom recommendation. It's more like very generalized. Like, hey, you didn't sleep enough last night. Maybe you should sleep more. Their user experience.
I've never seen an Aura ring.
That's good. That's good advice. That's definitely good advice.
But the resolution, the data is really, really good. So we're going to bring that in. So not only will we create value for our customers, we're going to create value for companies like that. So it's called a double Metcalf loop of value. So you create value for the internal organization, you create value for everybody else. That's where I'm just going to tangent for 1 second. If you're a sports scientist right now, you have an opportunity to position yourself very strongly within a college organization because you can create value within the organization for health and performance. You can create value for the players, and now you can use data to create value for fans. They should be paid so much money. Data science, I think, is going to find its way, like big data is going to find its way into college athletics because now it's a real business. It is a business. Like it's very, like the Supreme Court, it's a business.
And you know what I was thinking? Mental health, concussions, presumably with every kid has an iPhone. A lot of kids have Apple Watch and stuff like that. The data is probably there to get it done. It's just asking the right questions.
You have to ask the right questions, and you have to have some really good programmers because it's hard. It's not as easy as you think. But yes, if there's a will, there's a way. But you got to ask the right questions, and then you got to be willing to make a recommendation. You got to put yourself out there, knowing that you're going to get better.
So when you look at the potential applications of this, profound health outcomes for potentially millions of people, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you miss training golf at William & Mary at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday?
I think you can answer that for yourself. I will say this. and I'm not looking for any type of pity party, but when you do this, you risk everything. Like I'm making less money than I did 15 years ago. I am home. I get to see my kids more, but there's a whole lot of stress. I mean, ridiculous. Huh?
Is it a good stress? Because, well, no, listen, stress is stress. But do you feel it's a stressor that you have more control over because it's completely self-deterministic?
There's some things that I can't control, like right now, you only have so much money to spend, so you can't go out and get the greatest talent. And so it's very, like, engineers are very hard to find that can actually do what they say they can do. And so just like any other industry, well, I mean, it's like you pay for what you get most of the time. So you got to recruit really well. And I'm learning how to do that. And, I'm learning you're going to make mistakes along the way, but there have been some very tough periods of time. And then there's been periods where it's just like you're just not, like when somebody text message you a picture of them and their family with all their water bottles lined up. And you're like, I didn't even tell her to do that, but she's like, this is the impact it's having on my family. And then like text me, and like, cause we use text messaging in here. It's really a novel version thing that we do in our app is we text you every morning, a unique text message, and there's a deep link that pulls you right into the app. So you don't even have to open the app up. And people text message us all sorts of crazy pictures and fun stuff of like how this has impacted their life. And you're like, you literally changed somebody's health. I mean, that's worth fighting for. But the stress can be really, I've listened to a lot of podcasts recently for the past 9 months. I just any one time I'm not working, I'm listening to podcasts. I'm trying to learn as fast as I can. And you listen to these people like the guy that started Peloton. I mean, they almost went broke like 10 times. And it took 10 years to get that thing off the ground. Now, they were trying to build a bike with a screen on it. This is more of a demonstrated marketplace to go into. But I'm just excited to get this out there and to go serve people and to learn and make the product better, and make an impact in their lives. So that's what fuels me.
AIM7.com, right?
AIM7.com. And Kier, you're an investor.
I am. That's a full disclosure. But one of the most humble times I've ever been in my life is where you got emotional when I gave you money for that company. But it was such a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer, dude. I've the opportunities you gave me, and obviously the way you supported me in my career, it would be I'd be insane to not support you. So, yes.
Well, my goal is to make that money come back here in a little while, and you're like, doggone, that was the best thing I ever
did. Get paid, baby.
No question. That's the goal, man. Is people take risks, and we've had some amazing investors. We have a vice president, a VP at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Veronica Campbell Brown came in. She's an advisor and an investor. She was one of my athletes for 14 years. Former general manager of the Houston Texans. I mean, so some people that are pretty sharp and know this space were like, hey, this is a bet I'm willing to take. And so I'm excited.
Sell yourself short. They're investing in you as well.
That's true. So if you're interested, share this with your friends and family. AIM7.com. Sign up. We're going to give you a free gift. So like if you're like, hey, I want to go down the stress pathway, we're going to send you an audio message on the fastest way to de-stress. If you want to improve your energy, we're going to give you like a little energy checklist. So we're going to give you something for signing up, but it's completely free, only for the first 1,000 people. And I will just tell you right now, we have over about 300,000 emails that are going out the next month through people that I've helped over the past year. They're just like, hey, I want to introduce this to my community. So get signed up, tell your parents, your friends, all you need is an Apple Watch. If you don't have an Apple Watch, that's okay. Still sign up because we'll keep you on the list for when we bring in things like Aura and Samsung and Garmin. And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cash Chicks Championships. Tremendous. All right.